Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, your source for travel stories, travel destinations, and travel philosophy.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ryan.
And we're your hosts. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the World Wanderers podcast. Today we have an interview with Jeremy Jacobson, and Jeremy is Jeremy and Winnie from Go Curry Cracker, and they run a successful blog online. But more than just their blog, a reason why we really wanted to talk to them is because they have successfully retired early. So they retired in their early 30s. They now have an almost 1-year-old, and they've been living in Taiwan, where Winnie is originally from and where her family is. They spent a few months in Thailand with their young son, and just this really cool sort of idyllic lifestyle. And it's something that in our travels with Ryan and I, we've really saved our money, gone on big trips, spent all of our money, and then come back and had to save money so we could travel again. And Jeremy spent about 10 years working. So through his 20s, saved enough money, invested his money smartly, and then was able to retire completely for the rest of his life. So it's something that's really cool. It's really interesting, and we're super excited to have him here. Just a quick note before we start the show, he is over in Taiwan, so there is a little bit of breakage with the internet, and they also do have a young son, so there's a little bit of background noise at some point. So please be patient with the interview and just understand that sometimes it's hard to get really cool people on who are around the world when we can't meet face to face and both have microphones in a quiet environment. So hopefully you enjoy the episode regardless. And without further ado, here's Jeremy. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today to talk to us. It's super cool to have you here. We discovered your your blog through a few other podcasts, and then both hopped on your blog. And I mean, I know for me, I was very like, I don't even understand any of this, but it seems so relevant to my life. So definitely very cool to have you here.
Is that a compliment? I don't know.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, is that like one of those things where like we both need to focus way more on this? But our interest is really from the travel perspective. We both went backpacking early in our careers, and we're like, okay, this whole working for 40 years thing isn't going to work for us. And we've kind of gone on more of I guess like an unjobbing route, just trying to find things that are more interesting to us and focusing on lifestyle. But the route you've taken in having a period of time where you're really focused on saving and then getting to early retirement in your early 30s is it's really amazing how not common that idea is. How did you find out about this I guess extreme saving idea and the possibility of retiring in your 30s?
Well, you know, like it sounds like I actually went through a similar process to like what you went through, right? Like where you had kind of some early travel experiences and thought, you know, like this is way better than like being in an office or something, you know. And then I started trying to figure out just like how I could combine, say, like a small amount of savings with like, you know, some jobs on the road, like maybe I'd work as like a scuba instructor. And, you know, like my wife was talking about like teaching yoga and you know, just different things that we could do to earn a few bucks here and there to kind of extend the trip, you know.
Yeah.
And but both of us kind of grew up in like low income environments, you know, and like where money was always scarce and that caused problems for people. And so it was kind of, you know, maybe like a terrifying idea to, you know, like, I'm gonna give up like a good paying job and then just try to like get by on peanut butter sandwiches for the rest of my life. You know, like that's not really what we wanted to do. And then we started talking to people who were kind of doing that path. You know, like I talked to a guy like a European dive instructor in Thailand, you know, and I was like, hey, like, you're kind of living my dream. Like, what's it like? He's like, do not do it. My life is hell. You know, my life is hell. I can't even afford a plane ticket back home. I hate my life. Don't do it. And I mean, that's just one guy's experience, but like, the idea of kind of being trapped in a third world country without even funds to get a plane ticket home didn't seem very appealing either. And then we started kind of thinking through just like, you can make a lot of money in, if you're earning in euros or pounds or dollars, that money goes a long way through like Southeast Asia and Central America. And, so rather than just save up for like one trip, maybe we can save up for a lifetime of them. And we were able to do that in about 10 years.
That's so amazing. I know when we were looking at your blog, we were talking about how when we worked in corporate, I mean, we had pretty affordable rent and we saved enough to travel South America and come back with a little bit of money. We went down there for 6 months. But based on how much we were making in 2 years, we were like, we should have been saving way more than we actually did, like way more.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in day-to-day life and kind of, it's sort of like this short-term happiness. Like you buy something from a retail store, or you buy a coffee or dessert or something like that to make yourself happy in the moment.
And plus, like, you're tired after a day of work, and who wants to like go home and cook, and so you can just kind of get caught in this, like, you work to earn money, and then you spend all the money, so you have to work, and it just gets in this kind of cycle that keeps you trapped.
Yeah, definitely. Was there any like particular person or thing that inspired you to do, like, to work a lot and then retire early, or how did you learn about what that process was going to be like?
I started looking for people who had done it. And, I had taken sort of my first vacation as an adult. And, that was I was basically driven by pay off my student loans as fast as possible. And I paid off, I graduated in 96, and I was with like $40,000 in student loan debt, which in $15 is like $65K. And, I paid that off in about 5 years just by working like 60, 80 hours a week. Every penny I had just went into student loans.
Wow.
And then after doing that, I took a 3-week vacation, and like workaholic, can't stop thinking about the office, right? And it took me almost 3 weeks before I really started kind of appreciating that I was scuba diving in a tropical island and eating shrimp the size of my head, But it's just like this is all right. Like this is what life is about. It's not that what I was doing. And so I went back, and I had no clue, right? Like retirement meant retiring at 65, if you were lucky. But I just started looking for people who had maybe done something similar. And there was, there's like a book called like Cashing In on the American Dream. There's a couple who retired when they were like 35 and moved to Argentina or something similar. And then there's a couple who runs a site called Retire Early Lifestyle. And I met up with them in Thailand and kind of picked their brain about stuff. And they retired in their 30s, like 30 years ago. And so they had these decades of experience, and like all these things that I was worried about, they're just like, it's fine.
So what were some of those things that you were worried about?
It's like, how much do I really need to save? Is it possible to be retired off of like a portfolio for 60 years versus like people can't even pay their bills and they're only retired for like 15, 20, And what do I do about health insurance? Is it safe? Like, do you get like lonely being away from kind of extended family all the time? What if I want to go back to the U.S. and I haven't worked for 10 years? Like, are all my skills kind of atrophied and I can't, and they're like, we've heard these questions like, a million times before. And, yeah, they're important, but like, dude, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as you were saying them, I was like, okay, yeah, those are like pretty legitimate questions. Like, they're things that I think cross my mind or have crossed my mind or will cross my mind in the future.
Yeah, and so like, of course, you you go through them and you kind of, figure out what the answers are. But they have kind of removed the fear piece of it, and kind of put me more on like the logical path. Like, okay, like I'll solve these problems. They're not something to be afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Like trusting that you're always going to figure it out and there's always going to be, another answer, another way type thing.
And it sounds almost like having quite a bit of student loan debt, which obviously isn't a good thing, but having that debt almost and learning how to save a bunch of your income to pay it off almost kind of like prepared you for saving a lot of your income into actual savings.
Yeah, because like the day that the last student loan payment was made, 100% of that payment then went into savings, and I was still living, like a lower cost of living than what kind of like my peers were, and so I never like my lifestyle inflated over college, but it wasn't to the degree that all the people I worked with had.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you decided, okay, or I guess the question is, did you decide like, okay, in 10 years I'm going to retire, or was it kind of something you had been saving and it kind of slowly came to that idea?
So for the like after that sort of vacation epiphany I had, over the next couple years, I had like sold my house, sold my car, sold the motorcycle, started biking to work, and rented just like a room in someone's house, and I could drastically cut all my expenses. But I didn't know at the time that I was on like the 10-year path. Mm-hmm. I just knew that, like if you're saving half your income, every year you work, you have enough savings to take a year off, right? And you're only spending half. So, but it wasn't until like a few years into it that I sort of learned about things like, say, like the 4% rule. Came out of some like portfolio longevity research. It just says, if you can spend, that you can roughly spend 4% of your invested net worth and have your portfolio outlive you. It's roughly what it says, and so I saw the amount of savings that I was contributing every year, and I knew that was the desired outcome, like enough money where I could live off of only 4% of it. And then I was on this path of like, wow, I'm gonna be there in like 7 years.
Yeah, that must have been a pretty incredible feeling.
Yeah, but then 2008 happened. So.
Yeah.
But like, and then 2008 hit, and
so that was how long into your plan were you at that point?
So that was like, let's see, like 5-6 years.
Okay.
Yeah. It was about 5 years in. So I think I did that big vacation in like 2002.
Okay.
And then 6 years later. We lost like $400,000 during the big crash, but of course, like, we still own the exact same number of shares of stocks and so on, right? And we were basically just saving as almost my whole paycheck at that point. And so we were able to kind of buy low, and we decided I'd work a little while longer. I worked another 3 years, and we just kind of rode that wave out. And as a result, like, we ended up just blowing past our target. So,
what was going through your head at that time? When you saw your portfolio kind of dropping and dropping and dropping.
I'd seen, I'd gone through phases earlier where like losing $1,000 or losing $10,000 in a day in the market was kind of like a traumatic event, but I just kind of got used to it. And then when I saw that big of an impact, like, it just kind of didn't really feel real. Mm-hmm. But I also kind of recognized it as like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. And so it was kind of like a feeling of excitement. Like we're going to be able to like, blow our portfolio through the roof. Like let's see, like let's even save harder and just buy.
Just from knowing that eventually it was going to bounce back.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. I tend to be a little bit like risk averse with stuff like that. Like the thought of losing that much money, I feel like my thought would have been like, I got to get this money out of here. Like I got to, it can't be in there.
Yeah. And a lot of people in 2008 did that. And they sort of missed out on the recovery.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where your asset allocation strategy comes in. Like if a big, if losing 50% of the value of your portfolio in any given day is a scary thing, then you just need more bonds and less stocks.
Yeah. And so are you all self-taught when it comes to your portfolio, investments, stocks, bonds, all of that?
Yeah.
One of the things that's amazing about reading GoCarryCracker.com, the tax information and the investing information is just it's like very detailed. So what was your education process like in teaching yourself about investing and about taxes and really being in control of your money?
Well, so I have an engineering degree, which is kind of applied mathematics in a lot of ways and problem solving. And it's kind of like just cut the BS, right? Like I only need to know like 20% of the full details to be dangerous enough to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the approach I took to investing in general, right? And so like some early decisions like do I want to spend a lot of time trying to beat the market and like researching individual stocks and so on? And no, I don't. And then like you research, who are like the best investors on the planet and like how do they do what they do, and you realize that like you can never replicate what they do, because they're like really eccentric people who like have dedicated their life to it. And it's like, well, that's not what I want to do, and so then I just kind of fell into, well, index funding matches the market every year by definition. It's super lazy, and like 90% of active investors fail to beat the market year in, year out. So it's like, well, that's the way to go. And so that's what we did. And so now I can basically I don't even look at the market anymore. Just it's there, and you own like all these amazing companies that they hire really smart, aggressive people to try to solve problems, and I kind of figured that out largely through like just reading like a ton of books, right? Like I would go to the library every week and grab like a stack of financial books and read them on the bus to work or read them at home. And then there's a really good forum online called the Boggleheads Forum, which just kind of promotes the philosophy of the founder of Vanguard. All the research supports, the way to grow your portfolio the fastest and the most efficiently is to invest in an index with low cost fees and low tax impact.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
So are there a couple books that were particularly influential?
So when it comes to like in investing, I don't like there's nothing that I would say that is just like, this is an amazing book, other than maybe like there's a Bogglehead's Guide to Investing, but like when it comes to sort of like a really kind of good life philosophy or a way to think about money, it'd be like let's see, what's the name of it? Your Money or Your Life. And a big piece of their philosophy, is just like think of when you're spending money, you're not trading dollars for something. You're trading like hours of your life, the hours of your life that it took to earn that money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, like if you're like browsing through Amazon or something, you don't look at things like, oh, this is $20 or this is $30. You're like, oh, this is like 4 hours of my life. This is 6 hours of my life. And then you start to think like, do I really want to trade like that many hours of my future for like whatever that thing?
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about that. Actually, I know that it's like how they compare it when they look at, how much people are making, say in like the 1930s compared to now. They'll do it based on hours, but I never think about that in my day-to-day life. Like, this chocolate bar is point whatever of an hour. I just buy it.
Yeah. Well, and also people generally think about it as like, oh, like let's say your salary is like, $10 an hour, like just to use the easy number, and you're like, oh, well, the candy bar is $10. Like, that's only an hour. No big deal. I'll just buy it. But really it's like, well, after taxes, you only have like $6. And then, you also had to commute to work. So, it's an hour each way. So you're not actually, earning $8 an hour. You're earning, or $10 an hour. You're earning like 8. And then you also had like a work wardrobe, right? And you were tired. So you like bought lunch rather than getting up early and packing one, right? And so like your actual kind of earning is way lower than what your hourly rate is.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, oh, well, it wasn't an hour of my life I traded for the candy bar. It was 3.
Yeah. So is that really what your mindset was during that saving and accumulating period, where you're thinking, whenever you're tempted to buy something, you're thinking about how much of my time this is going to cost?
Yeah. Right, so I kind of tried to filter everything through that view, and definitely cut down on sort of like random expenses.
Was there anything else that you did during that saving process?
Well, so I'm a kind of a big proponent of lifestyle design. Mm-hmm. Just I know in the end, like I'm gonna be weak and I'm not gonna be able to say no. Right. So if I can design my life in a way where all the hard decisions and all the main challenges are already kind of taken care of, right? So like by like renting a room in someone else's house, I was never tempted to like remodel the kitchen, right? I was a short commute by bicycle away, and I didn't have a car, so like I really had no choice but to bike to work, right? So like that kind of designing your life in a way where even when you're tired and you're hungry and you're feeling stressed from work, that all of the challenges are already worked out in advance, mm-hmm. can make a big difference. And now kind of like the weird thing, like sometimes people are like, well, don't you miss anything from like when you were working? And it's like, well, yeah, I kind of miss my bicycle commute.
Okay, yeah. Biking is really relaxing. It's nice before work too, or after work to decompress.
But it is funny how it's like this change of perspective, because in the moment, when you're on your way home from work and there's like a restaurant where you can get takeout or something, that seems like it's going to be the most satisfying thing in that moment. But when you look back on it from, months down the road, you're like, oh, I really wish I could have saved that money. And the thing I really enjoyed from that time was riding my bike to work and not all these small purchases that I was making.
Yeah. And it helps to have, like-minded friends or friends working towards similar goals, right? So like we would plan sort of dinner events, right? So you didn't stop for takeout on the way home because like, oh, you were going to go like cook a group dinner at a friend's house, mm-hmm. And then like Winnie for a while, she basically said like, I'm just going to become a really good cook, and she'd always sort of enjoyed being in the kitchen, and like food is kind of like her life passion. But for a couple of years, she's like, I am going to focus on like building the skill. And then after a while, it's like why would you ever go to a restaurant like the best food in town is coming out of our kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I love that. Like improve on the skill that you're trying to like meet that need elsewhere type thing.
Yeah, and then 'cause once you kind of make the focus where you're going to try to solve things that like you used to spend money on, like feeding yourself and so on, or things like bicycle repair or whatever. You can build all of those skills, and then over time your costs go down while you actually get like really cool hobbies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that you think the kind of average person who maybe kind of feels a bit like stuck in that they're spending more money and not saving a bunch, what are the ways that most people are inefficiently spending their money, or what are the things they're inefficiently spending money on?
Yeah. Well, if you look at sort of the average budgets that you see, like I think it's like the USDA budget, or like people spend about 80% of their money on housing and transportation and food, and the rest. We're kind of again taking the engineering approach to it. Like let's just look at the big items and start from there. And it's like a lot of people. It's like, okay, well, I'm out of college now. Like I deserve a new car, or my job requires that I have a car, or like I need a car because I live in this place and my work is over there, and you kind of look at these things as like factors that are imposed upon you from the world, like you have to have the car because of where you live or whatever. But like no, those are all choices that you made.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can live close to work. So, you can ride a bicycle, right? And like those things are hard because any change is hard. But like they're worth it. Right? Like the changes that the savings that you can generate from just kind of cutting in those areas are substantial. And so like I get people all the time saying, like, I want to do what you do. I said, well, what I did was cut spending on housing and transportation and food. And if you did the same, in about 10 years, you would be there. I said, well, that's great, but I don't want to cut my spending on housing and transportation and food. Right? And it's like I don't. I like my house, or like I don't ever want to have roommates again, or like, well, I hate cooking. And it's like, well, yeah, if you don't want to change any of those areas, then you're not going to get the outcome.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to save money, you're not going to save money.
Yeah, those are the areas, right? And you can definitely save like stuff that you shouldn't have anyway. Like nobody should really have cable TV. Like most people don't remember the last movie they saw, but a nice bike ride along the lake, you'll remember that for quite a long time. So you can kind of your entertainment and your entertainment budgets and stuff. You can save like a few bucks here and there, but the big bucks are going to come from your housing, transportation, and food.
Yeah. Do you have any like tips or recommendations for cutting down on grocery budgets? Because I know that groceries are, even if you stop eating out a ton, it's kind of like your expenses for groceries goes up a little bit, which is obviously more affordable than eating out all the time. But I feel like it's one of those things that I know Ryan and I both have a hard time managing. It's probably our biggest expense between the two of us.
Yeah. And it's, like we spend a lot of money on food now, just because it's like, that's a big part of our entertainment. Like we eat our way around the world. But when we were saving really heavily, we bought things in bulk, so like rice and beans, you can get a ton of calories for very little money there. You can also buy like really good oils that are lasting for way less than you can buy things in small bottles. Beyond that, we lived like a block from a farmer's market, and we lived just like a few blocks from a Trader Joe's. And And we also lived, nearby like a Whole Foods and a Safeway. And so we basically tried to never shop at Whole Foods and Safeway because they charge like way more than the same thing at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of do like our bulk shopping, especially like, kind of ethnic markets, like the Hispanic market or the Asian markets. You can get a lot of like, produce and rice and beans for next to nothing. And then we'd augment with Trader Joe's. And then on top of that, we do like whatever kind of the farmer's market had just like a ton of that people were like begging to get rid of.
Okay. Yeah.
So you get like amazing produce for nothing.
Yeah. I love all that stuff.
It's funny that
we've recently cut out Whole Foods.
Yeah, we're originally from Alberta, Canada, but we're temporarily living in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're like, have a Whole Foods near our home for the first time. And when originally we got here, we're like, oh, Whole Foods, it's so amazing. Like it's gigantic, beautiful. There's like delicious food everywhere. But then, after like a month and a half, you're like, okay, no, I can't do that. It's way too expensive.
It's not called Whole Paycheck for nothing.
Yeah. The hot food bar too. I mean, it just crushes any sort of budget you have.
Yeah.
At least for me, I'm like, oh, I want a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and it's like $12.
Yeah, and you're like, I could have gone out to like a Michelin star restaurant for less than this. Like, come
on. Yeah, definitely.
What was your mindset like while you were saving and with your work? I know it sometimes can be hard to focus on this goal that's like, 5 years away. And if you're going to work on a Monday and you're thinking about how it's going to be good if I don't have to do this in 5 years, which is short in like the big scheme of things, but it does feel really long if you're maybe going through a funk at work. Well, what was it day to day like?
Well, there were a few times where like I wished I had FU money sooner. But like for the most part, like I really enjoyed my job and I enjoyed like the people I worked with. And, if I didn't, I would have found work somewhere else. But, as with like every good thing, like it's good until it isn't anymore, and then it just got to the point where like, I could keep doing it, but I wanted other things in life way more. I went through a couple funks sort of on the path with work. And what I did is I just changed jobs, within the same company, but I joined a different team. I had a remote work assignment where I was based in Asia for like 2 years.
Oh, cool.
And that largely happened because like I pushed for it, and it like I was traveling to Asia like 10, 12 times a year anyway, and it's like, why don't you just keep me there and, we'll save all this airfare and, it'll kind of work out better for everybody, and that, by kind of taking on new roles that were like, with new challenges and so on, I was able to kind of keep things at least exciting enough that I could continue to chase the carrot.
Yeah, that's good to know. It definitely is like, and I find too, when I was working, it was the times when like I had this kind of like end thing in mind, like, okay, we're going to quit and go to South America and it's going to be amazing. And for the most part, I could keep in mind like, okay, this latte is going to be, a big meal when we're in Ecuador or whatever. But there was times where it's just like, it would weigh so heavily on me and I'm like, I need this latte to feel better.
One thing I definitely noticed though, is like as sort of like my financial security, went from like, if I don't have a paycheck tomorrow, like I won't be able to pay the mortgage or the student loan, to, like if I lost my job tomorrow, like I could take a year off, up to like financial independence. Like as I moved up and up that curve, my value to my employer actually grew and my salary growth accelerated as a result, so it's like, you see things like if you're like absolutely have to have that job, like the odds of you saying like no to something that's like really dumb is really low, right? And your life's probably going to suck because you're working on stuff that's like, hey, this is really dumb, right? But if you're like, hey, I think that a better way to tackle this problem or to solve this is this other path, and you can sell a convincing play for it, suddenly like, hey, you have more interesting work, and your employer's like, whoa, this guy's like a go-getter. And like for me, definitely having the financial security made that easier.
Yeah, it kind of like takes the pressure off in a way, knowing that you're like it's like a hierarchy of needs thing. Like you've got your physiological needs covered, and then you can be more independent in your thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
A lot of people in the long-term traveling community are kind of, and we did this to some respect, you kind of hop from a long trip to traveling where you go 6 months, come back, get a job, work a year, go travel again, come back, work 2 years, go travel a longer period of time, and try to keep kind of alternating between the two. But in that way of living, you never accumulate any real savings. Do you think? I guess what I was interested in were kind of what your thoughts are on the value in, instead of doing that, kind of transitioning to lump all your working years together instead of alternating in and out.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
Well, so it's rumored that Einstein said something like compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. And if you continually alternate between like, just save enough for like to fund the next year, and then you spend it all, you're back to zero. Then you never let that most powerful force work for you, because you're constantly at zero, and you're also, because you're basically having these large gaps in employment. You're potentially not growing, like you're growing certain skills, but you're potentially not growing like in a focused area, that can lead to like rapid sort of salary growth that you would get if you had spent like say 10 years continuously in one field. And the only trade-off to it is youth. This was for most people, when you think about this trade-off, it's like, well, I'm going to work until I'm 65 anyway, so what's like a few years, here and there taken off, or, it's no big deal, like I don't have any other option. But when you look at it in terms of like, well, if I really kind of, focus on income and income growth, and I save most of it for like, a decade, maybe a little more, and then I could travel forever, that definitely makes it a harder choice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that maybe was a bit of a hole in my thinking early in my career, because this idea had never really entered my view at all. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to keep doing this until I'm 65. So forget it. Like, let's quit.
Yeah.
Let's go traveling. Let's spend the savings that I have.
Yeah.
And then like figure it out after. And I guess too, it's a lot easier. Like, I think it's an easy thing to do when you're young. And I know it's something that we've talked about is like, this isn't going to be feasible forever for us. Like, it's feasible because we, don't have anything, like we don't have children. We don't have anything that we need to pay for really. So, but at some point it's like, if you want to start a family, I feel like it doesn't really, it's not very stable, I guess.
Yeah. And although like there are people who do it.
Mm-hmm.
But like for us, we would struggle with doing it just because of like that need for security, like that did allow us to run off to Asia and work as dive instructors.
Yeah, definitely. And so once you actually got to the point where you're like, okay, I can quit my job, we're like ready to retire now. What was that transition like? What did you guys do first? Where did you guys go?
So first thing we took like a couple months and just hung out in Seattle where we were based, and just slowly kind of sold off all of our possessions. And then we went to visit family for a little while, but then we went to Mexico, and our idea was like, we'll be in Mexico 6 weeks. We'll go through like all of Central and South America, then we'll go to Europe, and then we'll do Asia, and it'll be like this awesome trip. But then like 9 months later, we were still in Mexico. Yeah. And we just kind of like we meet people and we're like, oh, like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, like, I'm on like this 2-week trip and I've been to like, these like 50 different places and it's been amazing. And we're like, oh man, we've been in like this one place for like 2 months. Like just like what you're doing just sounds exhausting. And so we quickly realized that the rapid round the world trip wasn't our thing, and also figured out like, hey, we got like kind of 60 years to finish this trip, or not, and so we ended up kind of slowing down a little bit after that. And we paused for a little while to have a baby. And then we just kind of got well, we're in Taipei right now, where my wife is from originally. Mm-hmm. And we just kind of got back here from 5 months going through Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore. And then in a week we go to Europe for 4 months, and then to the US for a few months.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Sounds like a pretty like luxurious life. Like, it sounds nice.
Yeah. I mean, like, we definitely don't do kind of like the low budget backpacker thing anymore either. Like, we're spending like $40K a year. Yeah. But we kind of average that out, right? So like, we were spending like $400 a month for, like a nice apartment in Chiang Mai, Thailand with like infinity rooftop pool, big gym, like super central location, and so then that allows us then to spend like, a couple thousand a month for a few months in Europe and still have it average out to something reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. Ryan was reading that blog post last night and he's like, we got to get to Chiang Mai. It's just like interesting thinking about, what you can get for $400 in Chiang Mai versus,
$1,100 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do not have an infinity pool.
We've got a sink though.
Well, our kid likes both of them just the same. So
it's irrelevant to him. It can turn your sink into an infinity pool if you leave the tap on long enough.
Exactly.
One of the things that I found really beautiful about your story is that you're able to now be really present with your kid as he's growing up, because you've spent all this time to really achieve financial independence before he was born, and you don't have to worry about spending all your days away and coming home stressed and, having that influence your child as they're growing up. Was that something that was on your mind when you set out to do this planning, in that you wanted to have as much time as possible with your family later on, or did that?
Yeah. I mean, like, we definitely consciously didn't have kids prior, because of the work environment and the we didn't want to have to do like daycare and so on. But like, there's definitely, I mean, like he's almost 1 year old now, and I've probably had more waking hours with him than most parents do in like the first like 3 or 4 years of life. Mm-hmm. And just because we're with him 24 hours a day, and we do, like I was able to spend like those 5 months through Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore. We had a pool or an ocean like right right where we were the whole time. And so like I would take him swimming every day, you know, and you kind of see him grow from like being unsure about the water into like, you know, diving in head first, you know, and you just watch that growth that I've seen, like, you know, the first time he rolled over, or the first time he crawled, his first footsteps, you know, it's a pretty amazing opportunity, I guess. Mm-hmm. Pretty fortunate to have that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about, and we've talked about how even like when you're traveling, like with your partner or whatever, it's a lot of times you get to spend so much more time with that person than, you know, the average couple would ever spend together, because when you're traveling together, you're together constantly. And I think it goes the same way when you have a child and you have the opportunity to, you know, travel with that child or live abroad with that child.
Yeah. And I mean, there are definitely pros and cons to it. Right? Like, I mean, there are times when we both kind of think like, hey, it'd really be nice to send him to daycare for a while. Mm-hmm. and you know, I'm sure my wife will tell you all about the cons of spending 24 hours a day with me. But yeah, it can really kind of, you know, bring you together, being in kind of unique environments together.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious about is how do you think that having a more nomadic lifestyle, how it will affect Julian as he grows up?
Yeah, we're still trying to figure it out. You know, like we think we're going to homeschool, and you know, like I picture things like you know, he'll learn Roman history in Italy.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, rather than build like the paper mache volcano with like the baking soda, you know, like we'll like summit a real volcano. You know.
Yeah.
You know, but there are definitely going to be, you know, other challenges, right? Like, you know, like he's not going to have the same friends for, you know, 30 years in a row.
Yeah.
Right. And I grew up, or we moved a couple of times, and then like I went away for college, and then, you know, a couple of jobs, and so like, you know, I have these friends through time, but they're all kind of like disjointed because I lived in different places, and you know, my wife lived in one place for like 30 years, and so like she has friends from like, you know, second grade, third grade, and you know, so we kind of have discussed that with each other, like, you know, like which one is better, which one is, you know, is one of them healthier than the other, like, you know, I mean, like they're definitely unique. They have their pros and cons, and so we're gonna kind of piece it together based on like his personality. You know, like if he kind of starts expressing like frustration with not seeing the same people, or you know, like he kind of seems like he needs more stability, then we'll go that path. And if he seems like he'd rather be on the go, then we'll do that. And then that doesn't have to be the same decision for 18 years. It can change.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful thing about what you've created for your lives, is that you have the ability to, you know, do different things. And I mean, we did a podcast episode on things that you can learn better abroad than you can at home. And it was, I mean, history was a huge one. Like, how unexciting is history from a textbook?
Yeah.
And then you go to these places and you're like, wow, this like actually happened here. And there's been so many times for me traveling Europe, I'm like, I didn't learn this in school. And it's like World War II history. Like, I probably did learn it, but it was just so like dry and in a textbook that I had no interest in consuming it.
You're just asleep in class, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's definitely, I mean, I'm more similar to Winnie. I grew up in like a small town in Alberta in Canada, and my parents still live there. So I spent the first like 18 years of my life there. I went to like university really close there. So, I mean, there's pros to having friends that, you know, have known you since you were really little. Like, they've kind of got your back in a different way. But at the same time, like, being able to learn around the world, I think, is an invaluable experience.
Yeah. You know, and we've you know, talked about maybe there's a middle ground as well. Like we have like a somewhat of a base, and then we kind of branch out from there into, you know, travel for a while and then return to a location. And so he'd have like a half and half sort of environment. But I think we have, at least 4 years until we have to figure it out for sure, like when kind of the formal school opportunities start.
Yeah. And so what's your sort of like day-to-day life like? Like I know obviously each day is probably a little bit different, but just to give listeners sort of an idea of what it's like to be retired as like a young father.
Well, like, the other day, Julian woke me up by like punching me in the nose and then just going, bah! Yeah. So whatever time he wakes up, that's when we get up. But day-to-day life is I think of it a lot like a staycation. Like we'll go to a particular area. Like say like Chiang Mai, for example. We were there 2 months. And so we just set up a base. And now that's our home. Right? And then we sort of branch out and we find like interesting restaurants and interesting places to walk, and then we'll get into kind of like something physical. Like I was doing CrossFit there, and Winnie was doing yoga, and then we usually try to get like some sort of artistic aspect into things, whether it be like music or painting. Like when he was doing, like when we were in Mexico, when he was doing silversmithing classes.
Oh, cool.
Time, and so we just kind of get settled into a place, and then have this slow pace sort of constant kind of growing and self-education sort of lifestyle. It's super chill, super relaxed. It's like if we feel creative, maybe like I'll write a blog post or create something. It's kind of interesting. Like when you're on the road, people are much more open and receptive to like new friends.
Absolutely.
It's like you make like contacts with people from all over the world, and then we'll be like, hey, like, because we're often spending more than most people. We're like, hey, we have like this really great house with like a terrace. Like, you guys want to come over and have like cook dinner together? And they're like, yeah, and then we'll get get kind of like the extended friendship circle going and just build a community in wherever we are, and it's kind of a nice, relaxing, sort of flowing day.
Has there been anything that surprised you about this lifestyle now? That's something that maybe in the year leading up to your retirement you wouldn't have expected yourself to be spending so much time on, or to be worried about, or to be enjoying so much?
Yeah, like I would have to say like I'm enjoying being lazy way more than I thought I would. And just simple things like not having an alarm clock. And kind of waking up, except for when your kid punches you in the face, waking up naturally. It's really hard to kind of put your finger on exactly what it is, but I think we've sort of naturally become more in tune with things like kind of natural cycles. Like sunrise is an interesting time to wake up, and sunset's an interesting time to kind of relax and calm down. When you take away like I have to eat 3 meals a day at these times, and I have to be up at this time, and I have to go to bed at whenever so I can repeat it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something I had not experienced, at least probably since childhood, and I definitely enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah, almost instead of trying to be like in control and forcing things, and like, oh, I need things to be on this time and this time, and you can kind of just step back and be a bit more relaxed and go with the flow and have a lot more energy for other things.
Yeah, and you're able to kind of listen to your body a little more. Mm-hmm. It's like maybe you take a nap instead of like chugging some caffeine.
Yeah, because you can. You don't have to be productive at that moment. You can be productive after your nap type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really beautiful things about, I mean, even a job where you can work from home type thing and you can kind of set your schedule up the way that works for you. Because not everyone's productive at the same hours. Like some people are night people, some people are morning people, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I think in college, I did most of my work from 11 to 2 in the morning. It's like that's when I found I could focus and get stuff done. But that made it really difficult to sort of be to work at normal hours. And so I struggled with that for probably most of my career.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the majority of people, I think, struggle with that, where they either like to get up like way earlier than the average person does, or they like to stay up way later. I know I'm a yoga teacher, and I've taught students. I teach a lot of 6 a.m. classes, and I've taught students who have been up since like 3 or 4 in the morning. And like, what are you doing up at like 3 or 4 in the morning? They're like, I just wake up, that's what time I wake up. I get some stuff done. I come to yoga, and then I continue with my day. And that's a beautiful thing, because they can do so much before the rest of the world's awake. But then if you're on like a regular schedule, you kind of crash at this like 2, 3 p.m. and you don't necessarily get to nap unless you're in control of your own schedule.
Yeah. There was something I saw a while ago. It was like from a Charles Dickens novel. It's kind of sort of referencing like people's second sleep. Mm-hmm. Like back in the days before sort of like electric lights, and people were living in relative poverty, and so you just follow the cycle of the sun, right? So it's like, well, sunset, the sun has set, you're not really going to waste all your money on burning candles, and so you go to sleep. And then people would wake up at 2 in the morning and feel like this surge of productivity. Maybe that's where he wrote a bunch of his books, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I've actually heard that before too. Yeah, I've met people who do things like they'll get up and they'll do their yoga practice, or they'll get up and they'll do all their emails in the middle of the night, and then they go back to bed for a little bit and then continue with their day.
Yeah, and so then when the sun comes, then you go back to sleep, and the sun comes up, and then you go about your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a two-phase sleep cycle.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we want to be mindful of your time. I think it's just about the hour mark. Is there any other recommendations you have for anyone who's looking to become a big saver, or to get in, to start investing, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think your questions were great. You really hit the heart of it. It's like the most saving opportunities are going to come from focusing on optimization and housing, transportation, and food. And you can once you've kind of focused on those, you can start building skills that will help you cut your costs further. Things like being able to cook, and then on the investing front, if you just do simple, low cost, low load sort of index fund investing through Vanguard, that's going to give you the best long-term growth. And that's just target saving something crazy, like 50% of your after-tax income, and plowing them into index funds every month.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And then,
it's so simple. Yet so hard.
Yeah. It's something that it seems so complex from the outside, but, maybe made to be very complex, but there can just be one basic answer. One other thing I want to touch on quickly before we go is that one of the ways that we've been able to finance part of our travels is just through tax savings, in that you can use retirement accounts to kind of plan if you're going to make a bunch of money in one year and then go traveling in another year. You can use your retirement account to lower your tax bill and then basically fund your trip using the money you save in taxes. I know there's a lot of great resources on Go Curry Cracker about taxes, but do you think that's a way a lot of people are overlooking area that they could save quite a bit of money in?
through it largely depends on how much income we're talking about. Like because generally speaking, like half of all Americans pay no income tax.
Wow.
So you have to be sort of above median incomes before you're really going to kind of see substantial opportunities for tax savings. But you're kind of above sort of median income levels. Like you can get through like a 401k, an immediate like 25% sort of tax savings, and then like a few percent match from an employer, and now you're looking at something like maybe even like a 50% immediate return on your money, and that's not an opportunity to just kind of throw away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 401k is like an RRSP. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did an interview with a girl she's based in the United States, and I was like, yeah, you can save through an RRSP, and Ryan's like, stop talking, that's Canadian.
Yeah.
It's funny how we're so close to each other, yet we have these different things for essentially the same thing. But I think that's really great advice, and I think it's something that I think a lot of times it comes from like unawareness. Like it's not because people are, I guess, like dumb or anything like that. It's just that they don't always know how to do these things, or that these things are available to them.
Yeah, and it helps when it's kind of done automatically. Like more and more employers now are kind of making you have to take a step to not contribute. Mm-hmm. Versus like having to turn it on, because a lot of people like they'll start a new job and just be like, oh, I'll take care of that later, and then of course you never do because life happens.
Yeah.
But if you can at least make sure that it's turned on, and that way the money comes out of the paycheck before you ever see it.
Yeah.
And then you can't spend it.
Yeah, definitely. I know one of the jobs I worked did that, and I hated it at first because I really needed money in the moment. But after I finished up that job, I was so grateful that had been a thing for the whole 2 years that I worked. This is just this massive savings account that you get when you leave.
Yeah. And the only danger being like, if you pull the money out, there's a penalty.
Yeah, they tax you on it, I think.
But if but you're getting this big tax savings, right? So like, don't spend that. Put that in the savings account, and then you can use that for your later travel, rather than pulling it out of the 401k.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Well, we've gone over the hour now, so I do want to be mindful of your time, and we really appreciate you coming on to talk to us about this. It's such great learning for us as well as for people who are listening. I think one of the biggest things that people kind of ask us about is how do you save to travel, and we're by no means not experts, so it's nice to talk to somebody who's done it on a way bigger scale than we have.
Yeah, like if you want to point to like the really weird guy who did the crazy thing, I'm happy to be that model for you.
Yeah.
Other than going to gocurrycracker.com, where should people reach out to find you, or should just go to the website?
Yeah, you can go to the website. There's like a start here place up on the upper menu. It just kind of walks people through an intro to the blog and kind of some of the more popular posts. We're also on Twitter and Instagram under Go Curry Cracker, and I read every email and every comment we get. So feel free to reach out.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's been awesome talking to you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
To find more information, relevant links, and photos talked about in this week's episode, check out theworldwanderers.com.
If you have a question, comment, or feedback, send us an email at info@theworldwanderers.com. Join our community on Facebook at The World Wanderers or on Twitter at WorldWanderers1. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye.